I said, there's the thing that makes life so fascinating and interesting and fun, and I do mean that, fun, is the overcoming of obstacles, the overcoming of difficulties. It's the limitations that make life interesting and fun. If you don't overcome anything, you haven't accomplished anything. You haven't accomplished anything, there's no reason to feel good about yourself. And so you have to find little small things to start to overcome. And you might, and beware, by the way, of people who put it down. If you come in, you're like, look, Scout, my backpack looked like this yesterday, and it's a mess. My backpack looks like this today, and it's all in good order. You will have those people in your life who will say, oh, wow, you put your backpack, nice. This, and they'll put it down. Yeah. I'm trying to think back to what I was doing in September of last year when this one seemed like a good idea to me. Because as soon as I make the PowerPoint, and then I don't really look at it until next year. And it pops up, and sometimes I'm like, man, sometimes it's really harsh, sometimes it's very difficult. Like this one here, this one's really, really clear to me. And it would probably be clear to you also if you were in my 12th grade class in the third quarter. In other words, there's a thing that we learned in 12th grade, third quarter, that would make this make a heck of a lot more sense. There's also something else I left off of the biographical information, and I don't know why I left it off. So, has anybody ever heard of this guy before? Yeah. He wrote a series of books called The Chronicles of Narnia. Maybe you've heard of that. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He wrote that series of books. And so he's a British writer for sure, but he's known for that, but he's also a theologian. You know what a theologian is? A theologian is a person who discusses like religious topics of God, studies of God. And so he's talking about mostly spiritual things. So when he says, I find myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is I was made for another world. If you know that much about him, that he's big on spiritual things, what do you suppose he might be talking about now? Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering if I was thinking about when I left off theologian. Because if I mention that he's a theologian and that he's thinking about those spiritual things, what are those two worlds? Obviously, this world, and what's the world after this world? Yeah, the afterlife, heaven, hell. But if you're not thinking about it from a religious perspective, if you're thinking about it from like a secular perspective, there's a term to describe what you were just describing that we use in science today. You can't swing a dead cat in the movie theater without hitting a movie that's about this stuff right now. Or on television, or in movies. It's annoying to the point. How about this? You can't swing a dead cat in the Marvel universe without hitting it. Multiverse, yeah. Multiverse. Yeah, so the multiverse, you could think of it. Now that might have been why I left off theologian, because I might have been trying to broaden it beyond just the religious scope. But yeah, maybe there's other worlds. Maybe there's simulation theory. Maybe there are other worlds. And the idea is, especially with regard to a simulation, if I'm trying to say this in such a way that it doesn't just like you can stay on track. If you play a video game, I don't know if anybody does this. You're not sure which way you should go, so you save the game, and then you go in one way to see how it goes. And if it messes up, you go, oh, never mind, let me try a different way. So you go back to your save game, and you go in a different direction. From a technical perspective, the coding between path 1 and path 2 is still present in the system, if you know what I mean by that. Meaning, if I go path A or path B, let's say I go to path A, and then I die. I go, well, I don't want to go that way, so let me go through path B. The coding that was in this timeline is still present in this one. In other words, you don't eliminate the coding for it, which means that if it was a simulation, you might be living in this timeline, but have some weird memories about some alternate timeline. So like, you've heard of the Mandela effect before? Yeah. Well, how is it that so many people get things so wrong? It's not just that like we get things wrong. We get things like wrong in the same ways. Meaning like, I remember Nelson Mandela died. He was on, there's a state funeral on television, and then the people will discuss the details, and people who've never met before describe the exact same details about the funeral. Is it possible that that was an alternate timeline? That was an alternate simulated timeline, and we were living in this one, but we still have remnants of the coding from the other one? Is it possible that there's a multiverse? Now, the thing about the multiverse is it can get so crazy that it becomes almost impossible to think about it, because if it's true that there's an infinite number of universes, that means that there's a universe in which I just referred to it as a universe. That means that there's a universe in which I referred to it as a galaxy instead of a universe because I misspoke. There's a universe in which I just took 3 seconds to finish that sentence versus this timeline where I finish the sentence right away. And in other words, it springs off in this infinite sense, which is, by the way, why the Marvel movies suck. Because once you have a multiverse, heck yeah. Because once you have a multiverse, nothing means anything. It's like, you guys saw, how many of you guys saw the last few, like Endgame? Mm-hmm. And then did any of you guys watch the Loki show?
Oh, honest.
Yeah, so the whole thing with the movies was the Infinity Stones, right? And these are the most powerful things in the universe. This can end half of all life in the universe, blah, 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 blah. And we're led to believe that there's this big, huge, grand adventure that these heroes are going on. There's like a 1 in a million chance they can be successful. The stakes are really high. But then you watch the Loki show, and there's a point when they're in an office, and one of the office workers opens up the drawer, and there's a drawer full of Infinity Stones. So how much do the Infinity Stones matter? Nothing. They don't matter at all. So this whole grand adventure that we were emotionally invested in, these heroes who we amplified, the ones they don't mean anything. The stones don't mean anything. Nothing means anything. In other words, if there's an infinite number of outcomes, it doesn't matter which way you go because, in a sense, you go through all of them. And you might think like, well, that's good. Yeah, but it eliminates any of the limitations. And what makes life interesting and what makes life worth living are the limitations. Like I think it was in this class I was talking about how maybe you guys or your children, for sure your children, but maybe even you guys are going to live in a world where you're going to live to be 300 to 500 years old. Was it this class I was talking about that? No. Yeah, so gene therapy, the things that kill us tend to be things like cancer, genetic things. In other words, some of us are more predisposed to cancer. Some people are predisposed to whatever disease might kill you. We're on the verge of this technology which will allow us to edit those things out of your genes. Essentially, you go to the doctor and say, I've got cancer. How do you cure cancer? Well, you remove the genes in that make cancer possible in you. Now you don't die from cancer. So what can you die from? Oh, a whole bunch of other things, of course. But then as you go through life, you're able to take those things out. We should be able to do that within y'all's lifetime. We think we're on the verge of it right now. And if not you guys, for sure your children. So now, you guys are 15 or 16 years old. How much does tomorrow matter right now? How many of you right now are thinking about tomorrow? How many of you are thinking about next week? How many of you are thinking about next year? God, that's dope. You are. That's way on the future. Even tomorrow is like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing after school today. How many of you even know what you're going to have for dinner tonight? And yet, of course. But imagine you're going to live to be 500 years old. How much less does tomorrow matter? Because there's always tomorrow. There's going to be tomorrow for hundreds of years. I wonder how many of you will get into relation. How many of you will get married? And you should be married for 350 years. And that's if you get married at 150. Yeah? I mean, nothing. If you have nothing but time, then time doesn't matter. If you have nothing but outcomes, outcomes don't matter. If infinity stones are found in desk drawers, infinity stones don't really matter. And if nothing matters, then, well, nothing matters. Well, yeah, what do you enjoy in life? You enjoy the things that matter. Family matters. Experiences matter. Think about the things in your life that matter. They're probably centered around time, but also they're centered around, those are the things that make life worth living. How many of you guys woke up this morning and just said like, dude, I'm fired up, man. English class today. Scallon's gonna say some life-changing shit to me. How many of you guys woke up this morning and couldn't wait to see your friend, though, in your English class? How many of you, or how about your friends aren't here and you're disappointed? And you're like, they're not even here, and you're all sad about it. How many of you guys woke up and you couldn't wait to see your friends at other times? Because it's those things that made you say, school. But, oh, I'm going to go see my friends, though. And that's the thing that gets you up, and that's the thing that gets you invested in even coming to school. And what's great is that you come here because your friends are here, and once in a while you actually learn something, too, which helps you in the future. In other words, that it's almost like the learning is the byproduct of high school. Nothing wrong with this. It's just a description of how it goes. College will be a bit different, probably. Of course, there's experiences. The learning matters even more there. So the point is just that it's the things that make life worth living they're typically invested in time with friends, time with family, experiences, jumping out of airplanes with parachutes, of course, or not, whatever you enjoy, traveling around. It's that time investment that makes it matter so much. And so sometimes you find your desire in yourself, and the world that you're living in right now, this world right here that you're living in, the 16-year-old, 15-year-old living in national city world that you're living in. So I wonder how many of you sit there and you're just like, I'm bored. Oh my God, there's got to be something else. I'm so bored. You know? And part of the reason that you'll be bored is because you're going to feel like there's something else to do. That's one of the really dangerous things about social media is that when do you scroll through other people's stories? Typically when you're at your most bored, when you've got nothing else to do. You're not sitting on a roller coaster going through people's stories like, oh, that's it. You might be the one on the roller coaster, recording yourself and having a really good time, and then one of your friends at home going like, lucky, they're on a roller coaster. I'm stuck in this room. Because you're watching the most exciting moments of other people's lives during the least exciting moments of your life. And then we can start to feel like, wow, my life sucks compared to theirs. But of course it doesn't. I mean, if you record the highlights of and by the way, the most exciting parts of your life might not be the most exciting parts of other people's lives. What I mean by that is, I wonder how many of you, does anybody here, I'm afraid to ask, anybody here enjoy reading? What's so, oh, sorry. Didn't mean to ask if anybody here enjoyed being educated. Sorry, didn't mean to make a joke there. But if you find a way to enjoy reading, that's pretty dope. Because that means you can enjoy doing a thing that makes you so much better and so much smarter. And it opens up your imagination in ways that a person who doesn't read can't possibly understand. And before you sit there and go like, oh, that's so stupid. I think the same thing when I read journals and I see things like gonna or like your or other things that indicate, yeah, why not? What's the use of a philosopher doesn't offend people? Things that other things that indicate a complete lack of literacy, a complete lack of cultural awareness, a complete lack of history, a complete inability to express ourselves, a complete inability to make ourselves understood and to understand others. That's what you lose with it. But if you can read, if you enjoy reading, that's dope, because that means you actually enjoy the thing that makes you better. Personally, I don't really enjoy reading. I don't sit there like, oh, I can't wait to read this. But I really don't want to be stupid either. And I have to make that decision every time I sit down to read something. Do I want to know what's going on here? Do I want to become smarter? Or do I want to become more entertained? Do I want to become more interesting by knowing more about the world and being therefore able to connect with more people and talk to more people? Or do I want to try to escape from the world that I'm supposed to be living in? Do I want to pretend like history doesn't matter? Do I want to pretend like philosophy doesn't matter? Do I want to pretend like cooking doesn't matter? All of these things matter. And yet, if you can't, you might think like, but they don't matter in my world. Yeah, but I guess that's the question. How big do you want your world to be? And the world that you're setting up right now is the world you're going to live in for the rest of your life. If you don't have the ability to talk to people outside of your world, wow, you think you're bored now. Wait till you've been talking to the same people for 50 years. Wait till you've been having the same experiences for 50 years. Wait till you've been living the same life, right? Working the same job for 50 years. That's going to be incredible boredom. And so the point is, if you find a desire in yourself where you're like, oh, I'm bored or this, that's something inside of you that's pulling you upward. And it's telling you there's more to this life than what you're doing right now. It isn't a thing that's telling you your life sucks. It's the thing telling you you're right because there's more. And that means you can experience it. That means that you can grow into something. That life is not just what this is right here. There is so much more. And that's because you were made for something bigger. Right now, your world is small, and that's a good thing, because that means that you have something small and manageable that you can master. Become a master of those small things. It's like if I have a client who comes to me and says, "Oh, Dr. I'm struggling with confidence. How can I develop confidence?" Because, as you'll hear me say sometimes, confidence is a motherfucker, man. There's almost nothing in your life that will improve your life more than developing confidence. I don't mean cockiness. I don't mean arrogance. I don't mean undeserved confidence, but a confidence that you've actually earned and permeates through you. How do you develop that? The only way you can develop it, you have to have some success. A person who's confident with no success isn't confident. That person's ignorant, and they're cocky, and they're narcissistic. They're not confident. There's a very big difference between those things. So how do you get some wins? Well, start small. Clean your room. Every day. Every day. Dude, if that's too much for you, man. Now, I don't want to hear shit about how I'm going to stack cash later in life. No, you're not, dude. You can be stacking boxes if you're lucky. But in other words, you have to show that, you have to prove to yourself, and not just prove to yourself, but actually develop the skill set for yourself, that you can be trusted with the small things. You can't keep your own room in order. If you can't keep your backpack in order, whatever little area you have, you can't keep the world in order, man. Like the one thing that you have control over. Now try to keep if you can keep your room in order, and let's say you have your own room. Let's say you're very fortunate and you have your own room. Now try to keep your house in order. That becomes harder because you have other family members who are messing up stuff that you try to fix. But if you can't keep your room in order, you can't keep your house in order. If you can't keep your house in order, you can't put your neighborhood in order. If you can't help put your neighborhood in order, you can't help put your state, your country, your world in order. It's funny how people want to jump from having a messy backpack to protesting the economic and political systems of the world and tell the rest of the world how they should behave. It's funny how people who can't even find Israel on a map want to tell Israel how to run their international policy. You shouldn't be doing that in Gaza. Where is Gaza? I don't know, but you shouldn't be doing it. It's funny how people who can't educate themselves on the basic things want to tell the people who do know how to run their world. And of course, why? Because what we're looking for is because we have a lack of mastery in ourselves, we want to tell the rest of the world how it can fix itself so that we can be better in it, rather than the other way around. But there's nothing to be gained from that. There's no accomplishment from that. There's no overcoming obstacles from that. Like I said, there's the thing that makes life so fascinating and interesting and fun, and I do mean that, fun, is the overcoming of obstacles, the overcoming of difficulties. It's the limitations that make life interesting and fun. If you don't overcome anything, you haven't accomplished anything. You haven't accomplished anything, there's no reason to feel good about yourself. And so you have to find little small things to start to overcome. And you might, and beware, by the way, of people who put it down. If you come in, you're like, look, Scout, my backpack looked like this yesterday, it's a mess. My backpack looks like this today, and it's all in good order. You will have those people in your life who will say, oh, wow, you put your backpack, nice. This, and they'll put it down.
You want a cookie?
Yeah, what's that?
You want a cookie?
Yeah, you want a cookie now? By the way, if I ever ask you that question, what, do you want a cookie now?
I'm gonna say yes.
Why?
Because I want a cookie.
That's like about me, because that means I wouldn't say that unless I had a cookie to give you. I did that last year. One of my students came in and she was just like, she's proud about something. I'm like, oh wow, what do you want, a cookie now? She's like, yes. I'm like, I got you. I just made a bunch of cookies in my air fryer. I ordered some cookies from I think it was the band or something like that. They're doing fundraisers. There were like 3 boxes of cookies. So if you come in here and you it smells like cookies. And I go, oh, what do you want, a cookie or something? No matter how sarcastic I say it, the answer is probably yes, because there's a cookie to be had. I wouldn't ask you otherwise. But yeah, people will put down small accomplishments. Who cares? Whatever. You know that you've accomplished something, you know that you've built something, and you know more importantly, it can build into something bigger. So, crap. It's 4 minutes too long. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Dope.